Hi there, I'm Denise Wakeman, your guide and host of this edition of Adventures in Visibility. And I'm really thrilled that you're here with me today because I've got a great guest. I was going to originally say that he's my virtual friend, but then that kind of sounded like he's an invisible friend too, and that could sound kind of weird. So he's my friend, new friend that I've met on Google Plus, and a few weeks ago, I was noticing that this guy was posting all these great articles about Hootsuite. And Hootsuite is a social media management tool that I love. I've been using it for, I guess, a few years. I started on TweetDeck and then moved over to Hootsuite. And I love it, but I realize that I don't use it to its fullest capability. And I know a lot of people feel that way as well. So when I saw Mike Allton creating all this great content around how to use Hootsuite, I decided to invite him here to Adventures in Visibility and share his great information with you. So welcome, Mike. I'm so glad you're here with me today.
Thanks a lot, Denise. I'm happy to be here. And it's funny you mentioned those articles because I was in the same situation as you. I'd been using Hootsuite for a long time, and I'd only been using it to broadcast messages out. I never liked how it looked. It was intimidating, this busy dashboard. And so I made it a point to figure things out and share that information with readers. And it's kind of funny because if people go through these articles that I've been writing, they're learning the things that I probably learned as I was writing the articles.
That's a good way to do it. It's a good way to do it because it kind of forces you to dig deep and dive in and figure out, what does this button do? What happens when I do this? So I like that. That's active experimentation, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Mike, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background? I know you're a Hootsuite Solution Pro, and I don't really know what that means. So, why don't you, give us some background about some of your background, so the viewers can know who you are if they don't already, and then we'll talk about Hootsuite.
Great, sure. Yeah, so I've been doing websites and internet marketing for a couple decades now. And last year I started the social media hub because I wanted to really focus on writing blogs, doing content marketing, promoting blogs, being active on social media, and actually generating real traffic, real leads, and real sales for myself and for my client businesses. And Hootsuite obviously became a big part of that. So I became a Hootsuite affiliate, which basically just means, if I recommend Hootsuite and you click a link, I get a small commission for that, which is it's not a big deal. But the Hootsuite Solution Partner, that's kind of a big deal because what that means is I've gone through some very specific courses and training that Hootsuite put together through their Hootsuite University that basically says I didn't just say I'm a Hootsuite expert. I've actually gone through some courses and I've been verified by Hootsuite to at least have a minimum amount of information that I can actually pass on to my clients.
Well, that's good, yeah, because a lot of people will say, I'm an expert just because they use something. We were talking a little bit about that earlier, so I won't go into it. But when you said that you were a Hootsuite Solution Pro, then I kind of figured, well, he must have some certification around this, and he knows a lot more than I do. So I do want to let our audience know that if you have a question for Mike about Hootsuite and using it for your business, you can go ahead and type it in the comments below this video that you're watching, and it will come up and we will get to them as best we can. So just type in your questions in the comments area and they will show up on my screen back here in the interface, the Hangout interface. So, all right. So, Mike, when we started talking about doing this Hangout, I said, what kind of tips and tricks do you have? And you had mentioned that you use Hootsuite as for social listening and for curating content. So I think it would be a good idea to talk about those things, how you use it, and what does that even mean? What does social listening mean, and how do you use a tool like Hootsuite to do that?
Great question. Yeah, social listening is when as a business, you try to pay attention to conversations and discussions that are taking place on social networks. And typically we're talking about Twitter and actually Google+. Since Facebook and LinkedIn are what we refer to typically as closed networks, it's a little harder to find out what people are talking about on those networks. So you listen on Twitter and you listen on Google+, for when people are talking about conversations, topics that are going to be interesting to your business or relevant to your business. They might be mentions of your brand, so you're listening for when people are talking about you. They might be conversations that are about your industry that you might want to jump in because you're interested in participating in those conversations. Or you might be listening for questions that have to do with issues that your business solves. So if you're a personal injury lawyer, you might listen on Twitter and on Google+, and these are public conversations, so we're not stalking people, but you might listen for when somebody might start talking about being in an accident, okay? And one of the cool things about Hootsuite is that you can save these searches, and you can even geolocate these searches. So again, if you're a personal injury lawyer, you may not care about an accident that took place on the other side of the country, but you might care about an accident that took place within your 25-mile radius. That might be a potential client for you. Particularly if you're in a larger metropolitan area, like I'm in St. Louis, and if I'm an injury lawyer here in St. Louis, I want to pay attention to what people are talking about in my general area. So you set up a saved search. You come up with whatever keyword phrase you think is going to make sense, and you geo-target it. So you put this little fence around it. So Hootsuite will only show you the tweets or Google Plus posts that are taking place within that radius with that keyword search.
Excellent. So how would that look for somebody who is setting that up on Hootsuite?
Good question. And there's a lot of different ways that you can do that. And this is part of where Hootsuite becomes a little complicated and overwhelming. It's designed to be a dashboard. It's a lot like TweetDeck and some other solutions. So you've got tabs across the top, and each tab you have multiple streams of information. And Twitter's probably the easiest example. You may have a tab just for Twitter, and within that you might have a stream that shows every time somebody has mentioned you, and you might have another stream for every time somebody sent you a direct message, and you might have another stream for one of your lists that you've set up within Twitter. And so within that stream you see every single tweet that applies to that stream. So the saved searches are the same way. You can go up in the upper right-hand corner of your Hootsuite dashboard and just start typing in a search and hit enter and see some results. And you can refine that search, you can click on the results, do whatever you want to. But once you get a search that makes sense for what you're trying to do, there's a button at the bottom that says Save as Stream. And it's one of the really brilliant parts of Hootsuite is you can save that search as a permanent stream in whatever tab makes sense for you. And then all you gotta do is open Hootsuite and boom, there's your stream, there's your saved search, there's everybody within a 50-mile radius talking about the accident that they were in today, and they might be a potential customer for you to reach out to. Now the cool thing is too is you can set up different tabs for different purposes. So your tabs don't have to be network specific. I have a tab that's for conversations, and within that tab I've got all these different streams of saved searches, and they might be Twitter, they might be Google Plus, or back and forth. You don't have to have just a Twitter tab and just a Facebook tab and so on. You can set it up however makes sense for you and your business and what you want to accomplish.
Okay, well that makes sense, and it's interesting you said that it doesn't have to be platform specific each tab, because that's kind of how I have mine set up. And that make it subject specific with each of your platforms that you're tracking. So thank you for that. That's like a little light bulb moment for me. Okay, so when you are listening, how are you typically setting up those streams? So you've got a search for your location, let's say. if that's important to you. Do you use multiple keywords that you're looking for, or how do you usually recommend that to your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, it's going to be a little bit different for every business. What are the keywords for your business? What are the potential issues? Is brand listening really applicable to you? I mean, to be honest, if you're a smaller business, it's not going to be such a big deal. There's not going to be that many people talking about you online. But what I often do is have a tab set up for the brand name, and within that are going to be streams for brand listening and monitoring. And then I have a separate tab set up for conversations, or whatever we want to call it, and within that there are going to be streams for however many different keyword phrases we want to search on. And I should point out, within Hootsuite you can have 10 or 20 tabs, and within each tab you can have up to 50 streams. So it's really flexible how you want to set it up, and there's, you can have as many different keywords as you want. Just know that if you set up 50 streams, 50 search streams within your conversations tab, the first time you click on that tab, you're going to have to wait a moment for all those streams to load. But it is convenient, because again, you can just click on that tab and you can see if there are conversations taking place around these topics that you've previously identified are going to be interesting to you. Right. So here's another tip for you. Within Hootsuite, you can, most people know that you can go and there's a box that says compose message, and you can go into that box and you can choose a social network and you can send that out. And if you're looking at somebody's Twitter feed, you can hit a reply button, and that's going to put their name, their Twitter handle, up into the compose box for you. And again, you select your Twitter feed and you can send them a note. What a lot of people don't know is that Hootsuite actually allows you to set up templates. So you can have a message that you've pre-formed and save it as a template. You go into the compose message field, actually click it open, and you'll see a little disk icon, and it's one of those iconic things. I mean, who use floppy disks anymore? But there's a floppy disk icon there in the compose message, and to save one, you start typing in a message, and then you can save it to your templates. So again, this is really great for clients who are using Hootsuite to respond to their potential clients who are talking about something. So you can have a canned response ready to go that says, hey, I saw that you were talking about this. I'd like to help you. I'd like to talk to you about it. And there's a certain art to that. You don't just want to spam them with a link to your website and say, hey, I saw you're in an accident. Sorry you haven't died. Here's my website. You want to be tactful about it, and I've suggested to clients offering a resource that's free, that isn't very salesy, asking them if they'd like help, asking them if they'd like to have a conversation about it. Be as non-obtrusive as possible. Particularly for, again, I've used this law firm example a couple times. In a law firm, if it's of any size, it's typically not the lawyers who are using Hootsuite. It might be a secretary or an office assistant, somebody who is not really in a position to speak professionally with a client. They're not prepared to provide legal advice. So again, this is a great tool for them. You have these templates set up for these people so that they can easily pick and choose which template's most appropriate, send it, adjust it if you need to. It's not just a quick send a template. The template pre-populates your compose field, and then you can change whatever you need to change and send it out and start that conversation that way.
Excellent, excellent. I've got a question here that I want to pull up because you sparked a something here, and Jimmy Landley says, I had no idea you could monitor G+ on Hootsuite. What?
Yeah. Yeah. Now, and this is one of those issues that has come up in the past. You cannot connect your personal Google Plus profile to Hootsuite yet, as far as we know.
Right.
Google has not opened up that API. The only app that I know of that allows you to post to your personal profile is one called EveryPost. And EveryPost is really only for personal profiles. It doesn't support Facebook pages or LinkedIn company pages or Google Plus pages for whatever reason. But Hootsuite does support Google Plus pages. So again, it makes it the perfect solution for businesses. You can connect your Google Plus business page, and then you can see your home stream. You can create a stream within Hootsuite for one of your circles. So if you start circling influencers on Google Plus or peers or anybody, you can put them into a specific circle, plug that into Hootsuite, and see all of their most recent posts. And you can do the same search streams.
You can plug in a circle? Oh my gosh. I mean, I know circles are like lists for sure, but it just didn't, it never even dawned on me that, okay, well, there you go. Another thing that I'm learning. This is cool. This is cool. Okay, yeah, I get that question a lot. It's like, why can't I, post to my profile on Hootsuite? Yeah. Well, you can't yet, but you can do a page. So if you're using a page, there you go. It does work for that. Yeah. Okay, so another thing, several people have asked about the free version, and so I want to just, if you could talk about that. Jimmy's got a lot of questions here. So, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And there are different versions of Hootsuite. I use the Pro version because I realized I needed more functionality. But so, what's some of these things that you're talking about? Are they available on the free version? Are they limited on the free version? Or why don't you let us know?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And in fact, it's something I'm digging into. I actually have a call scheduled next week with a product manager from Hootsuite because I found that their website, when they're comparing the different plans, doesn't really tell the whole story. And it's not that they're trying to be elusive or anything like that, but there's some really, really subtle features and differences between Pro and free that I want to make sure everybody knows. This is actually what you can and can't do. But most of them don't matter. I'll be honest. Most of them don't matter. Most people, the main difference is the Pro version allows you to connect more than 5 social profiles. So for most people, if you have 5 or fewer social profiles that you want to connect, the free version is fine. And that's what I tell most of my clients. Honestly, I'm one of these social manager guys where I don't put their profiles in my Hootsuite dashboard. I make them get their own Hootsuite account, and often I set it up for them. And often it's a free version. They'll have a branded Facebook account, a branded Twitter account, a LinkedIn company page, a branded Google Plus business page. That's 4 accounts. That's a free version. We're done. And they don't need the Pro version. Again, there are some subtle features like being able to share an image. And I don't mean the image preview. I mean actually going to the compose message and dragging an image off of your desktop and throwing it into the compose field and sharing it to, say, Facebook. You can't do that with the free version. Is that a reason to upgrade to Pro? Probably not.
Right.
But I'm going to have probably within the next couple of weeks, maybe after Thanksgiving, a very detailed breakdown. I'll send it out as a blog post of everything you can and can't do with the free versus the Pro versions.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, I have somebody who does some work for me, and so I wanted to be able to have one or more team members be able to help me out on my stuff, and I know that's a Pro version, and I signed up for Pro version so long ago that to me it's worth it. So yeah. Okay, so before I get to any more questions, we did say that we were going to talk about content curation. So I would like you to discuss content curation and how Hootsuite helps you with that.
Sure. Now, when I talk about content curation in this context, what I'm talking about is finding other people's content to share to your social networks so that everything that you're saying, everything you're doing on social media isn't just all about you. Everybody has their own preferred ratio. I usually talk about 80-20 as a goal. I don't know if I ever get there. But 80% in that instance being other people's stuff, and only 20% about you or by you, which means for most of us that means we need to find sources of information, sources of articles and other people's content to share. And where do we do that? And so you can identify other people's blog posts, you can identify news papers and news sources, and there's all kinds of places, Denise. I mean, there's all kinds of places you can go to find other information. What Hootsuite makes easy is you can subscribe to people's RSS feeds using the Hootsuite Syndicator and bring them all into a stream, or multiple streams, however you want to do it. Again, it's that flexibility. So within my Hootsuite, I've got a tab for RSS, and within that RSS tab, I have 2 streams. One stream is my site, because I'll use that to reshare some of my more recent posts to Twitter. I may change the title, whatever I do. And then I've got a second stream that's a couple dozen RSS feeds of other people's blogs that I've subscribed to, because I know every single day these people are writing great articles that I'm interested in, and I know my followers are interested in them. And it's super easy once you've got this stream to click on a title and pop it up in a new window and check out what that person wrote, decide if you want to share it, maybe pull a quote out or whatever you want to do. And then there's a little arrow button on each one of those articles that you click that arrow button, and guess what? It goes right to your composed message field with the title of the post, a shortened link. You can change it, add whatever commentary you want, choose some social networks, and I usually hit auto schedule so that I'm spacing out my shares, and that's how I fill up my day. Usually once a day I'll jump into my RSS feeds, find out what's been published today from my favorite writers, and schedule a bunch of shares out throughout the whole day.
Well, I love that, and when I heard about the syndication, I realized that could take the place of an RSS reader like Feedly or all the other ones that are out there, right? So you could actually really have a one-stop shop for all the RSS feeds that you might be following. When Google Reader, went bye-bye, a lot of people were like, what do I do? And was this a response to that from Hootsuite?
Yeah, although, because of the way it's set up, they knew it was going to be different. They knew it would be used differently. So I don't think they ever expected that it would replace a lot of people's readers. Because I'm the same way, if you're subscribing to RSS feeds just for your own information, because you want to keep up with those different topics, Hootsuite's probably not the best solution. It's not designed to be easy to read all these posts and digest them. Feedly's great for that, and I still use Feedly. I do every day. I use Feedly for sources that I know that I'm really only interested in personally. I'm not going to be sharing them because if I want to share from Feedly, it's one button at a time. And I also use Feedly for my newsjacking sources. Like Facebook's press room, Facebook's RSS feed. I bring that into Feedly so I can be aware of what they're talking about. I would never do that into Hootsuite because I'm not going to share Facebook's press releases to my followers. I'm going to write about them, and I'm going to share my own blog post. So, yeah.
Excellent tip there. Another question around this RSS syndicator, is this also available on the free version, or is this only an upgraded version? Do you know?
Yeah, it's cool because not only is it available to the free version, it's an app that you can install. And one thing that people don't know about Hootsuite is they have a library of, I think, 70, maybe 75 apps that mostly third-party developers have created. Like there is a YouTube app, there's a Pinterest app, there's a Reddit app. And you install these apps, and it obviously increases your functionality and ties it to that specific platform. And they're not just social media. I mean, there's a Salesforce app and some CRM apps and so on. So the Hootsuite Syndicator is an app that you install. But unlike a lot of the apps, it's also free. Like the Pinterest app, which you can use to schedule Pinterest pins, there's a monthly fee for that. So I don't even use that one. But the Hootsuite Syndicator, that's a free app. So you just open up, what I do for most clients is we create a new tab just for RSS. We install the app, and then we start to install the different streams.
Yeah. Well, I just recently, I've been ignoring those apps for a long time. It just didn't really occur to me. And then I was looking at the home page on Hootsuite, and I saw a little Instagram image. I'm like, wait a minute, you can share Instagram on Hootsuite? How do you do that? You can't do it on Instagram. And so then I started looking into it, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I've totally ignored this. And so I installed that app. It's free. I installed the YouTube app. And so now there's even more content that I can choose from for sharing, because I'm also of the 80-20 rule, and I share a lot of other people's content, and I often get a lot of people tell me that I share a lot of great content because I know what people are looking for who follow me. So I was really blown away. So I would highly recommend people look into that app section too. So I want to ask, have a couple more questions here about that people have asked. We have a question here from Jeff. Can Mike talk a little bit about the analytics functions in Hootsuite? Can you?
Yeah. Leave it to Jeff to come up with the tough question. The analytics in Hootsuite is complicated. I'm not going to sugarcoat that one. What they want to make sure is happening is that, because the way they do it is they will run a report for you, and you usually set it up to run every week, and they'll actually email it to you. It comes out as a PDF. You can have it even white labeled, so it's very friendly for social media managers. So what they want to avoid is you saying, I want to know everything, and you just have tons and tons of information that goes into their report. So they do limit you, but they make it very customizable. So that's to preface what I'm about to say. To do reports in Hootsuite, there are specific things that you decide in advance you want to see. How many followers did I gain last week? How many of my tweets were retweeted? How many of my Facebook posts were liked? And you can plug in Google Analytics, so you can even have some of your website statistics brought into a report. You decide these different things as modules, and each module has a point value associated with it. So you can pick and choose what modules you want to include in a specific report, but there's a limit. With the free version, with the pro version, I think it's 50 points. It might be fewer points with the free version. In fact, the reporting aspect is like my next article. So I've got 3 more articles in my series, and reporting is next, and then apps. I'm going to talk all about apps, and then I've got a final blog post in this lengthy series. But yeah, so the point is you can pick and choose which modules you want to set up. You put them into a custom report, and you save it, and then anytime you want to, you can go in and pull up that report real time, or it's going to get emailed to you on a regular basis. And anytime you want, you can blow it away. You can swap in different modules. So it's not like you're committing to only that amount of information. But it is a little less intuitive than some other platforms, where like Buffer, where you just click on the analytics tab and boom, there it is. Information that they're able to provide.
Okay, good. Okay, I'm going to go to another question, if you don't mind.
No.
From Fernando, and he says, when you reply a mention on Twitter with auto-schedule on Hootsuite, how does Hootsuite decide when is the best hour to send the reply? So this goes to the auto scheduling, which I love. I use all the time.
Yeah, I love auto-schedule too. And I'll explain what that is to back up for anyone who's not used it. When you're in Hootsuite, you've got 3 choices. You can compose a message and just send it right then. And let's just talk about Twitter to keep it simple. So you're on Twitter and you want to send a post or reply to somebody. You hit send now and it's gone. You can also schedule for a very specific time and date using the little calendar and the date picker that's there, part of the compose field. But the other option that they added probably just in the last 12 months is called auto schedule. And by hitting auto schedule, you allow Hootsuite to determine the best time to send that message. And this is to Fernando's question, how does Hootsuite decide what that best time is? And it's a little complicated, but it's based upon your time of day, who your followers are, and when they're most likely to see it. So it's not going to send it at 2 o'clock in the morning for where most of your followers, it's nighttime. If you hit auto schedule in the early to late evening, for whatever reason, it's probably not going to get sent till the next morning. So for that reason, if I'm replying to somebody, like if I'm thanking somebody for mentioning me and sharing me, I always do a send now. I almost never would do that as an auto schedule. Just go ahead and send it now and be done. But when I'm sharing content, when I'm sharing links and messages, for the most part, I almost always use auto schedule.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on that. Okay, we've got some good questions here, so let's keep going if you don't mind.
Not at all.
Okay, let's see. Okay, so Molly wants to know, can you +1 and share from Hootsuite with your streams? So that would be, I guess, your Google Plus page stream, right?
Right, and unfortunately right now you can't +1 and share. You can comment on posts. You can create what's called a comment stream, but if you find a post in Hootsuite, if you find a Google Plus post in Hootsuite that you want to engage on, the best thing to do, what I found to do, is to click on the date timestamp, which is a link directly to that post, and then that'll open it in a new browser tab, and then you can +1 it, you can share it, you can do whatever you want at that point.
Excellent, excellent. Now, there's a comment here and a request, and it's about something we discussed earlier. If you're up for trying it.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Janine, and Janine, we did talk about this, and it could create some trouble on this Hangout just because of all the bandwidth that these things take. But Janine wanted to know, she said it would be helpful if you could share where on Hootsuite these things that you're talking about. And I understand it is definitely easier to know what's happening when you can see where it is, but also, Hootsuite takes up a ton of bandwidth, and as do these Hangouts. So that's why we decided not to do it. But I don't know, if you want to try, we could.
Yeah,
that's
we
up
can
to
try.
You, Mike.
If it ends the Hangout prematurely, then that's what happens. So I'm going to go ahead and do a screen share of my Hootsuite dashboard, and I'm just going to start kind of giving you the guided tour of what I do. So are you able to see that now?
Not yet, but it looks like it's trying. There it is. Okay.
So this is my Hootsuite dashboard, and as you can see, I've got tabs along the top, and I do have some tabs devoted to specific social networks. That's because I've got a lot of streams within them specific to that network. But then I've got some other kinds of tabs that I'll jump into in a moment. But within each tab, you've got these streams. And this is partly the default way that Hootsuite comes out of the box. It's going to suggest that you connect a social media account. It's going to suggest that you set that up as a tab, and it's going to give you a bunch of recommended streams for that account. So don't feel bad if this is how you have it set up. But one of the really cool things that I love using Hootsuite for that you might be able to see right here is Google Plus Chat. Can you see that?
Yep.
This is a Twitter chat, and I love using Hootsuite to participate in Twitter chats, because you save the hashtag as you do a search on the hashtag up here. And I'll just show you how that works. You type in Google Plus Chat. This is a weekly chat on Tuesday afternoons talking about Google Plus on Twitter, and then down here is a button to save it as a stream. So as soon as I click that, this stream gets saved, and there was Jimmy. She was participating this week. You can just jump in here and you just keep hitting refresh as the chat goes on, and you get to see what everybody else is saying, and it's so easy to reply. It makes it a real breeze to participate in a tweet chat. So then over here we've got my RSS tab. And this is what I was particularly afraid of might crash the Hangout, so hang on. It always takes a moment, even if I have nothing else running, to load these, because, as I mentioned, it's going out to a couple dozen other websites, grabbing their RSS feed and pulling in the most recent articles. So Hootsuite's working really hard for me right now. Mm-hmm. You can see this middle stream is just my site. It was only one RSS feed, so it loaded up really quickly. And here we go. Here's the most recent feeds from a bunch of sites that I follow. All Things D, Hootsuite itself, Inbound Marketing, Mashable, Heidi Cohen, Copy Blogger, a bunch of people. And so every
Excellent.
day, once or twice a day at least, I'll hop in here and I'll see what's going on. Like here's an article that Wade Harmon wrote this morning, Their Brain in Your Social Media Update. And I already shared it. You can see by this green button. But just so you can see how this works, I'll click it again. I clicked this green button and it populated the compose field with the title and a shortened link automatically. So I can change this if I want to, or I can just select a Twitter account and click auto schedule. And it's going to push that out to my social network or networks, whatever I want to choose.
Excellent, excellent. So I hope that helped. I don't want to, take the chance of crashing things, but I think that gave a bit of some insight into where things are. I quickly want to put this one up for you. Kamara says she's learned 5 new things already. Cool.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Me too, Kamara. Okay, so let's get you another question here. Okay, so Jimmy, this info is great. Mike, what resource do you recommend to get the nitty-gritty on all these features? Obviously, this HOA is an appetizer. Yes, exactly. We couldn't cover every single thing about Hootsuite. That's why we wanted to just focus on a couple things. But why don't you tell everybody where this great resource of articles that you've published is? Because I think that would be a big help.
Yeah, it's on thesocialmediahat.com, and if you go to my site, in the top menu under tools and apps, there's actually a drop down just for Hootsuite. So you can go there and you can see all the articles and all the news that I've shared about Hootsuite. And specifically, what I've been referring to is this series called Hootsuite Series. You could go into Google Plus and search hashtag Hootsuite Series and also see these posts. And I'm on, I think, article number 13. So we've been packing in a lot of information. And like I said, I've got at least 3 more articles planned, and I keep coming up with more topics that I want to drill down into, because there's some complicated stuff. I mean, we didn't even talk about using which link shorteners and all these different parameters you can set up if you want to do A/B testing on links that you share. Some really powerful tools all within Hootsuite, and again, most of them are part of the free version.
Right, right. Well, and you can write a book now. Just put them all together and sell it on Kindle. Great way to repurpose your content.
That's a brilliant idea.
Well, I'm all about repurposing. And I just want to share some of the feedback you're getting. Great work, Mike Allton. You're a true ninja of the tools required to rock social.
Thanks,
I agree, Ryan. I agree. Okay, let's do a couple more. Here's one, I think, somebody you know. Great job, Mike. We are tuned in at work.
Hey, cool. Awesome. That's great.
And I think we'll take one more question because we are off past the 30-minute mark, which I always say I want to stick to and never seem to be able to. But, I think that this question here is a good one for you. Maybe you have some inside scoop on that. Tim's saying, we're giving Hootsuite the keys to our social kingdom. Can you speak to Hootsuite's security practices to reassure us admittedly paranoid types?
Yeah, that is a very appropriate question. And it's a topic that's not going to go away for any time soon. We have these issues all the time, both with our individual social networks and when we start using these tools. Just a couple weeks ago, Buffer had some issues, and previous to that, it's probably been 3 or 4 months now, Hootsuite had an issue. In Hootsuite's case, their issue wasn't so much access to our social networks as it was they found out. It's kind of an interesting story, and I'm sharing it so to kind of illustrate what Hootsuite is doing. Hootsuite found out that a totally separate third-party website had been hacked, and they never said who, but this other website had been hacked, and this other website was a membership site of some kind, so that it had usernames and passwords and email addresses. And the hackers obtained a spreadsheet with that information all in a chain. So it knew Denise Wakeman, it knew your email address, and it knew your password for that specific site. And what the hackers knew is that most of us use the same email address and the same password and the same username for all of these different sites that we're logging into. And so they took their spreadsheet and just started applying these username and password combinations to Hootsuite to see if it would work. And Hootsuite saw it happening because they saw these brute force attempts, basically, to log in to multiple accounts all at the same time, and they shut it down. And they said virtually nobody's account was accessed, which was great. It was good news. But what it prompted them to understand was, we've got a problem, potentially, because this is probably not the first time that somebody else's website's going to get hacked, and people are going to obtain this kind of information. So what Hootsuite is starting to do, a couple things. They've done what they call two-way authentication. It means you have to have a username and password, and you have to authenticate with one of your other social networks, typically Twitter. The other thing that Hootsuite does is it now monitors where you are when you log into Hootsuite, and if you or somebody else attempts to log into your Hootsuite dashboard from a different location, in other words, a different IP address, that's going to require you to go ahead and re-authenticate using one of your other social networks. So when that means that a hacker potentially, let's say they get your Hootsuite username and password, they're also going to have to be logged into your Twitter account at the same time.
Right.
And no matter what, whether they're able to log in or not, Hootsuite is automatically going to send you an email notification saying, there was an attempt to log into your account from this other location, just so you know. And if you're sitting at home and you're not at the Starbucks Hootsuite says you were at, you know that someone has tried to get into your account, and it's time to change your passwords.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm really glad that question came up, because I'd noticed that I was having to log in, more often, because I use a couple different devices. I use my mobile, I use my desktop, I use my laptop. So I've been noticing that I've had to do that. So it's really good to know that those security features are in place. I like that they're going to send an email. That's really good. Well, this could go on and on and on. And I, as much as I'd love to do that, I do want to be respectful of your time and the time of our audience, and just let you know that people are loving this content, and Mark Vang calls you the Hootsuite helper, like Ronnie Dinser is the Hangout helper. You are now dubbed the Hootsuite helper.
Wow.
So congratulations
Knowing Ronnie
on that.
as I do, that is high praise.
So. And if you have time, over the next couple of days, maybe you could jump back into the event page and answer some of the questions that people are still coming up with. And for all of you who want more information about Mike Allton, definitely go to thesocialmediahat.com, find that suite of articles, a series of articles on Hootsuite, because they're really detailed. They're very detailed. I've been looking them over and reading them and checking them out, and so definitely it's going to be worth your time, because this is a really powerful tool, and I realized I was not using it nearly to the capacity that I could, and so I was really happy, Mike, that you agreed to be on my visibility and my adventure in visibility today. So if you would like to get notification when I do the next adventure in visibility, you can go to adventuresinvisibility.com and get on the early notification list. I also send out when the replay is posted on my blog. Obviously, these are recorded in real time, and you can just stay here and see it as soon as it's rendered. But also, if you want to know when it's really posted and have with some show notes too, go to adventuresinvisibility.com. So Mike, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate your time, your expertise, and sharing with us today, and I learned a lot too, so thank you for that.
My pleasure. It was a lot of fun being here. Thank you.
Okay, great. So everyone, Thank you for hanging out with us today. I keep looking over out to the side. I apologize for that, but there's lots of activity going on. Thank you for being with us here today, and we will check in with you on the event page and answer any other questions that we can. So take care. Bye-bye. Thank you, Mike.